Australia is a continent, but it is also one country. Many people know Australia is big in land size, but few people understand how truly empty it is. Let's look at some numbers. Australia is about the same size as the main part of the United States. The United States has more than 300 million people. Australia has only about 26 million people. This means that two states in America, California and Texas, each have more people than all of Australia. California has over 39 million people, and Texas has over 28 million. Think about big cities around the world. Cities like Tokyo, Jakarta, and Delhi have more people living in them than the whole continent of Australia. Shanghai and Seoul have about the same number of people as Australia. Many other big cities, like New York City or Mexico City, also have populations similar to Australia's total. So Australia is a continent, but its population is very small. Most Australians live in just a few cities. Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide are the 5 main cities. Almost 2 out of every 3 Australians live in these cities. In fact, about 90% of all Australians live in small city areas. These areas cover only a tiny part of Australia's land, about 0.22%. This means that most Australians live close to the coast. About 85% live within 50 kilometers of the sea. The rest of the continent is mostly empty. This creates strange situations.
For example, there is an area called the Pastoral Unincorporated Area in South Australia. It is as big as the country of France, but only about 3,750 people live there. That's like 1 person for every 178 square kilometers of land. Also, there is a cattle farm called Anna Creek Station. It is bigger than the country of Israel. Only about 8 people work there. So why is this huge land mostly a ghost town? Many people might think it's just a desert. It is true that Australia has many deserts and some dangerous animals, but this is not the full answer. The reason Australia is so empty is complex. It involves the land's old geology, its weather patterns, its history, and sometimes just bad luck. We will explore these reasons to understand this amazing empty continent. 2. Where people live. Australia is a very large country, but most people live in a small area. This area is often called the Boomerang Coast because of its shape along the south and east. Here, 90% of all Australians live on just 0.22% of the land. This makes Australia one of the most urbanized nations in the world. The main cities are Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, and Adelaide. These 5 cities are home to almost 2 out of every 3 Australians. Sydney and Melbourne, for example, are big, busy places with millions of people. But just a short distance from these cities, the land changes dramatically. 85% of Australians live within 50 kilometers of the sea. This means few people live deeper inside the country. Living in Australia often means living close to the coast, on the edge of a huge, empty land. This can create a feeling of being isolated, even within the nation. The big cities are like urban oases, full of life and activity, but they are surrounded by a vast void, a silent, empty interior that stretches for thousands of kilometers. For example, the Shire of East Pilbara in Western Australia is as big as Japan, but only about 10,000 people live there. Half of them live in just one small town, Newman. Imagine a space the size of Japan with barely any people. Another strange example is the pastoral unincorporated area in South Australia. It is next to Adelaide, a city with more than 1.3 million people. But this area, about the size of France, has only about 3,750 people. This means there is about 178 square kilometers of land for every person. It is like a small country's area for each resident. Then there is Anna Creek, a cattle ranch slightly bigger than Israel. It is the largest cattle ranch in the world, but only 8 people work there full-time. This huge area is home to fewer than 12 people and around 10,000 cows. Imagine driving from Esperance on the south coast to Kununurra on the north coast, both in Western Australia. This trip takes about 35 hours and covers over 3,200 kilometers.
Along this long journey, you will pass fewer than 70,000 people. It is like driving across almost all of Europe, from Madrid to Istanbul, but seeing almost no one. This shows the huge difference between where people live and the vast emptiness of Australia. The cities are busy and full, but the rest of the continent remains largely untouched and quiet. The big empty land. Australia is a continent of huge, quiet spaces. After leaving the busy cities, the land changes quickly. It becomes very big and very empty. This vastness can make people feel small. Let's explore some unique and bizarre places in Australia's empty interior. One such area is the pastoral unincorporated area located in South Australia. This territory is remarkable for its size and tiny population. It is as large as the country of France in Europe. However, only about 3,750 people live here. To imagine this, picture France with so few inhabitants. This means there is roughly 178 square kilometers of land for every person. This low population density highlights the extreme emptiness of this Australian region, making it a unique administrative zone. Even more striking is Anna Creek. This is not a city or a government area. Instead, it is a privately owned cattle ranch. It holds the title of the biggest cattle ranch in the world. Anna Creek is even larger than the entire country of Israel. Yet, only about 8 full-time workers manage this enormous property. They are responsible for caring for many thousands of cows, perhaps 10,000 in total, across this immense landscape. An area larger than Israel, usually home to fewer than 10 people, truly shows the incredible scale of Australian land. To truly understand this emptiness, consider a very long road trip. Imagine driving from Esperance, a town on the south coast, to Kununurra, a town far away on the north coast. Both are within the vast state of Western Australia. This incredible journey takes at least 35 hours of continuous driving. You will cover a distance of over 3,200 kilometers. This is like driving across almost the entire continent of Europe, from Madrid to Istanbul. But on this long Australian road, you will pass very few signs of human life. The total population you might see along the way is less than 70,000 people. These incredible distances and the small numbers of people show how easily humans can feel insignificant when faced with Australia's massive size. The interior of Australia is not just empty land, it is a powerful, silent void. It reminds us how much of this continent remains wild and untouched. This truly is the big empty land, full of its own quiet power and mystery. 4. The missing rain. Australia is a huge land,
almost as big as the United States. But a big problem makes much of it empty: rain. Or rather, the lack of it. And when it does rain, how it falls. This is a story about a land surrounded by water that still struggles to find enough to drink. First, cold ocean currents hit Australia's western side. These currents do not bring warm air, so not much water rises into the sky. Without this rising water, clouds cannot easily form, and rain does not fall over a large part of the west. Then, on the eastern side, there is a long line of mountains called the Great Dividing Range. These mountains are the fifth longest in the world. They stand like a wall, stopping rain clouds that come from the Pacific Ocean. The clouds cannot go past the mountains into the middle of the country. This creates a rain shadow over the vast land behind the mountains. This means the center of Australia stays very dry. Also, Australia has the lowest average height of any continent. There are not many tall mountains to push air up high where it can cool down and make rain. The air is also often too hot for rain to form easily. A high-pressure belt around the world warms and dries the air over Australia, making things even harder. Australia's weather can also be very wild. Events like El Niño make the climate hard to predict. During an El Niño, winds from the west become slower. This means less wet air reaches the east and north. When this happens, long periods of dry weather and big bushfires become common. One year there might be heavy floods, and the next year, extreme drought.
The land fights back against anyone trying to farm or build. Even in the north, where it gets a lot of rain, the rain is tricky. Cities like Darwin get more than 1,800 millimeters of rain each year, but almost all of this rain falls in just 4 months during the wet season, from December to March. The rest of the year is very dry. In the middle of northern Australia, rain can be even more unpredictable. In one year, a town might get 740 millimeters of rain in just one day. But a few decades later, the same town might get only 4 millimeters in a whole year. This makes life very hard for people and nature. Australia also does not have many big rivers. The Murray-Darling Basin is the most important river system. It provides drinking water for about 3 million Australians and helps grow most of the country's food. But this river system has the lowest water flow compared to other big rivers in the world. For example, the Mississippi River in the United States carries 22 times more water. Climate change makes this problem worse. Hotter temperatures mean more water dries up, and less rain means the rivers get less water. Some parts of the Murray-Darling Basin can be completely dry for months at a time. The struggle between nature and civilization continues. 5. The old ground. After learning about Australia's difficult weather, we now look at the land itself.
The ground in Australia has its own big problem. It is simply too old. For hundreds of millions of years, the continent has not had the geological changes that make land fertile elsewhere. For example, there has been no new mountain building in northern Australia since the Precambrian era, which ended about 1.5 billion years ago. Also, big ice sheets, called glaciers, have not moved across this land since the Carboniferous period, nearly 300 million years ago. This is very different from other parts of the world. In places like North America and Europe, glaciers and newer mountains helped create fresh, rich soil.
These events add new materials and mix the ground, making it good for plants. But Australia's land has been exposed to weather and erosion for over 250 million years. In contrast, most soils on other continents like North America, Europe, or Asia have been renewed by geological processes or recent glacial activity in the last 10,000 years. This long period of exposure means Australia's soil has lost most of its important nutrients. These nutrients are vital for plants to grow strong and healthy. Without them, even if there was plenty of rain, the ground itself is often not suitable for traditional farming. This makes Australia a truly difficult place for agriculture, adding another large reason to the impossible continent puzzle. Because of this, land that is truly good for farming is scarce.
Only about 6% of Australia's huge land area is actually suitable for growing crops. While 6% might sound like a small number, Australia is such a vast continent that this still adds up to a significant amount of usable farmland. For example, Australia has more arable land than several countries in Southeast Asia combined, including Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and Vietnam. These nations together have a population of over 500 million people, while Australia has only about 26 million residents. Australia actually has the highest amount of arable land per person in the world. For every Australian citizen, there are about 1.9 hectares of farming land. In comparison, the United States has about 0.47 hectares per person. This means that, in theory, Australia could support many more people. If Australia had the same amount of farmland per person as the United States, it could be home to over 90 million people. But the poor quality of the ancient soil remains a big challenge, making this potential hard to reach. It adds another layer to the puzzle of why this large continent remains mostly empty. 6. A lost world. For millions of years, Australia was like a lost continent. It floated alone in the sea, far from other big lands. This made its animals grow in a special way, different from anywhere else. It truly was an isolated place, like a raft cut off from the rest of the world.
About 50,000 years ago, the first people came to Australia. These were the Aboriginal people. The world looked different then. Sea levels were much lower than today. People could walk across islands and a land bridge to reach a large landmass called Sahul, which included present-day New Guinea and Australia. This was a remarkable journey into an unknown continent. Once they arrived, these first people lived mostly alone for tens of thousands of years. The sea rose after the last ice age, around 10,000 years ago. This covered the land bridge between New Guinea and Australia. Australia became even more separated from the rest of the world. For nearly 9,600 years, few outsiders visited this distant land. It remained a hidden world. The first Europeans to see parts of Australia were the Dutch. In 1606, a Dutch ship landed on the Cape York Peninsula, but the Dutch did not build towns or stay there permanently. They thought the land was too hard to live on, full of challenges and lacking easy resources. 50 years later, in 1656, a Dutch ship called the Vergolde Draak had an accident. It crashed off the coast of Western Australia. 75 people survived the shipwreck and bravely made it to the shore. These survivors were now stuck on the vast empty coast of a land almost unknown to them. 7 of these people got into a small lifeboat. They planned a dangerous trip to Batavia, now called Jakarta, in Indonesia. This was a very long journey, about 1,400 miles across the open ocean. It took them 41 difficult and tiring days to reach their goal, enduring many hardships along the way. When the 7 people finally arrived in Batavia, they immediately told everyone about the 68 people left behind in Australia. The Dutch Navy sent many ships to search for them. For several years, they looked along the coast of Western Australia. But they found almost nothing. No sign of the ship's wreckage was found, and no trace of the survivors. The 68 people from the Vergulde Draak were never seen or heard from again. They simply disappeared into the huge, empty land of Australia. Their ultimate fate is still a mystery today. It was as if the vast, wild continent had swallowed them whole, leaving no trace in history. It was not until 1963, more than 3 centuries later, that divers found the ship's wreckage. It lay about 100 kilometers north of modern-day Perth. But the people themselves remained lost forever, a haunting reminder of Australia's power to consume those who dared to venture into its harsh interior. 7. New people arrive. After many years, new people arrived in Australia. In 1788, the British started the first European settlement. This was near modern-day Sydney. About 1,300 people came. At that time, other continents had much larger populations. Australia's population started very small and grew slowly. Then a big change happened. In 1951, gold was discovered. This led to a gold rush. Many people from the British Isles moved to Australia. About 2% of Britain's population came in just 10 years. This almost doubled Australia's population very quickly. However, after the gold rush, it was still hard to attract many immigrants from Europe. Countries like the United States were closer and easier for Europeans to reach. In 1901, the Australian government made a new rule. It was called the White Australia Policy. This policy only allowed white people, mostly from Britain, to move to Australia. This rule kept the country's population low for many decades. Other countries, like the United States, received millions of immigrants during this time. But Australia saw only a small number of new arrivals. Before the Second World War, Australia had only about 7 million people. Many Australians worried about their small population compared to much larger countries in Asia. In 1942, the city of Darwin in northern Australia was bombed by Japan. People feared a possible invasion. After the war, the government realized something important. Australia needed more people to be strong and safe from future threats.
So, after 1945, Australia began to change its immigration rules. It started to welcome people from all over Europe, not just Britain. Many people who were displaced by the war found new homes in Australia. By the 1960s, about 3 million Europeans from countries like Italy and Greece had moved there. Finally, in 1973, the White Australia Policy ended. Race no longer decided who could move to Australia. Since then, Australia has become a multicultural nation, welcoming people from many different countries. Today, most new immigrants come from Asia, especially China and India, making Australia a truly diverse place. 8. The future. Australia is a big country with few people. We have learned why. Its ancient land, harsh weather, and long isolation. Can Australia support more people in the future? In theory, yes. Australia has land and food resources for many more than its 26 million today. It is a big food producer. 4 times as many sheep live here as humans. Australia is the second largest producer of sheep and wool. It also grows much beef, almonds, and lentils, feeding millions globally. Australia has a lot of farmland per person. If it had the same amount of farmland per person as the United States, it could be home to over 90 million people. This shows Australia's big potential. However, more people mean bigger problems.
The Murray-Darling Basin is the most important river system. It gives water to 3 million Australians. It also helps grow almost all of Australia's food and exports to Asia. But this river system has less and less water. Its flow is the lowest of any big river system. Climate change makes Australia drier and hotter. 9 of the 10 hottest years happened since 2005. High temperatures make water evaporate quickly. Parts of the Murray-Darling Basin sometimes dry up for months. This causes water wars, as people compete for water in an already dry land. Australia's population is expected to reach 36 million by 2050, mostly through immigration. But this growth will be hard. The country must fight its environment. Old problems like little rain, dry rivers, and large empty areas will worsen with climate change. The main question from the start was, why is this huge land mostly empty? The answer is its old geology, harsh climate, and unique history. How do you think Australia can grow safely and still protect its environment?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.